All right, good.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the Liberty First Foundation Weekly Roundtable. I'm Mike Marshall, one of the co-founders of the Liberty First Foundation. To my right, you will see Michael Vaz Vasquez from No Soundbites Allowed and Dragon of New York. He makes politicians run. Below me, you have Dog Grim. And he's not really below me, but it's on your screen. You'll see him there. Okay. Yep. And off the bottom left or bottom right is Frank Range Report Johnson. He's hearing colors today, folks. Frank's another of the co-founders of the Liberty First Foundation.
Probably,
everybody.
Probably from shooting that Mark 1. You're hearing colors of that the Monarch ammo blowing up in your face.
That has got to be the absolute worst ammunition on the face of the planet. I swear to God, I mean, off camera, I have to. One of these days, I'm going to do a blooper reel of all the stuff that happens that I don't put on the channel, because I spent like 45 minutes cursing that crap upside down and one or the other. It was absolutely horrible.
Where does it come from?
I think it's a South American manufactured ammunition that I picked up at Academy Sports.
Okay.
Now listen, to be fair, Aguila ammunition, which is fantastic stuff. I mean, I used to use Aguila strictly when I used to shoot bullseye competitions. The failure rate on that stuff was 995 out of 1,000 rounds. You know, that were good. It was really good stuff. Also, South American ammunition. This Monarch stuff, it goes, but the power level is so low on it. I got back. I took a couple of them apart and I compared them to CCI, and the powder level is like a third of the power level. And it claims to be, 1,000 feet per second ammunition. I'm like, maybe if I throw it, it might get that speed.
Well, you've got to do like they used to do out on the old shows and fling it.
Yeah. Well, that's the shit I could never understand about the old Superman television show. He would stand there. He'd stand there like this, and the guy would be over there with this little Smith & Wesson pocket hammerless, and he'd be like, yeah, you bastard. You're like jerking the gun at him. And he'd just stand there. The guy would run out of bullets, and he would throw the gun at Superman, and Superman would duck out of the way. Like, you just got shot 6 times. You didn't move.
That's because he was using Monarch ammunition.
Yeah. But the guy throws the gun at Superman, and Superman gets out of the way. I don't understand that at all.
Like, you still have to, like I said, you got to fling that round down range. That's how you get 1,000 feet per second.
Yeah,
catapult effect.
Yeah. I got a wrist rocket that I just got from a company to do a test on, so I might actually start taking those rounds and slingshotting them.
Hey, look, Monarch, I'm actually completing your advertising.
I mean, usually the worst ammunition that you usually get these days is like Winchester White Box as far as 22s go. This makes Winchester White Box look like CCI Stingers. I mean, it's just that bad. Really, really bad stuff. Academy Sports, if anybody's watching, contact the people at Monarch and tell them a little more powder, please. A little more powder.
Okay. Just so everybody knows, we're starting to get a couple people on the show. Tonight's show is going to be short and sweet. We're only going to be on here for about an hour. So we're going to jump into things and get things going. Michael, before the show, you were talking about a lot of threats that are going against many of Trump's picks.
It's bomb threats, swatting, threats to them as individuals. It's amazing because we're looking at the left. We heard from all the leftist media since the election. The American people voted wrong. The American people are uneducated. The American people are violent. The MAGA people are violent. That's J6. here's something that's really interesting for everyone who's been hearing that from CNN, MSNBC, as everyone abandons them because they lied to the American people on multiple issues over and over again. But here's the thing. Now they say anyone who's a Republican, conservative, that means you're MAGA, that means you're evil, you're part of 1930s Germany. Not once since 2020 did you see members of the right, conservatives, most Americans, we didn't go out during the lame duck session in the end of 2020 going into 2021. We didn't give bomb threats against every one of the nominees that Biden Harris put together. We didn't threaten the people who are going to be leading our nation because someone had a bad feeling. But that's what the left is doing. And I want people to see this because it's not just me. And I'm very upset about this because this was coordinated, this was timed, and that means that we are going to see more of this coming down the road. So in case anyone thinks I'm just making it up, this is from Syracuse.com. And what you will see, this is talking about how Elise Stefanki, who was with her husband and her child, and luckily they weren't home, and they were told about the bomb threat at their home. The article goes on to highlight former Congressman Lee Zeldin, who was also threatened. And matter of fact, Syracuse.com, left-leaning news media, leaves out something very important about this story. I'm going to show you the actual quote that Lee Zeldin put out. But it wasn't just Lee Zeldin and also Elise Stefanki, who, again, she's an active member of Congress at this moment. But also Donald Trump's pick for commerce, which is Howard Lutnick, was also targeted, and also swatting. And I'll explain what swatting is in 1 second. And then we also have Matt Gaetz was being targeted. By the way, if you wanted to find out what was being said to Matt Gaetz, both to Matt Gaetz and what Lee Zeldin had to say, because it is not being shared with people. Hang on a second. Let me give you the next source here. So the left-leaning news media left out a few things in the details about the bomb threats, about the swatting. I'll get to the swatting in a second. But we can see here, Lee Zeldin happened to mention this was a pipe bomb threat. So this is serious stuff. Pipe bomb threat targeting him and his family at his home in Long Island, New York. They knew that people would be home for Thanksgiving, so they're targeting them in their homes. And what else did they do? They sent the pro-Hamas messaging saying they support Hamas. This is domestic terrorism. This is a threat to our security, and it is coming from the left. The very same Democratic Socialists of America, the very same progressives out there that promised you that, Harris was great, the same Dearborn, Michigan Democrats that were telling you we have to support Hamas, even though they have still over a year now continue to hold on to American hostages and have killed American hostages in cold blood, besides those they killed on October 7th. This is the evil that we see coming only from the left. And they want to say that we're the bad people, that we did something wrong. How can they say that when look at what they are doing? And I truly believe, I've said this for a while, that on Inauguration Day, we're going to see riots. The only reason we didn't see riots on Election Day is because the announcement that Trump won was at 2:30 in the morning. So everyone was mostly asleep. They lost their window to get the excitement out. And what they have done is we've seen in Chicago and California, New York, they have been out. They have been protesting. They have been supporting Hamas, an international terrorist organization. They have been demonizing all Republicans all at the same time. And now we see this violence. And this is coming all from New York State. But I don't doubt that in California, if any of the Trump nominees were in California or in Illinois, we'd be seeing the same thing there. And I think everyone has to be careful on Inauguration Day, January 20th, 2025, because the left will be rioting in cities across this nation. I've already talked to several members of the left, various political organizations and news media, and they have already told me they have been hearing the same thing. The left, just like they organized themselves to be able to threaten members of Congress, current members, former members of Congress, individuals who've been nominated by Trump. They have threatened them in their homes, threatening their children, and that's all coordinated, all at the same time. They're going to also be coordinating on Inauguration Day. The left, this is vile, it is evil, disgusting, and I call them out. I denounce them. I say that they are evil, and this is un-American. This is terrorism, and they should be identified and prosecuted as terrorists for what they are doing. That's my opinion on it. Maybe it's me because I'm being emotional, and I know I'm usually not. But this is the news that we're hearing, and how many more nominees are we going to hear about between today and through Black Friday? And Thanksgiving and Black Friday, how many more of Trump's nominees are going to be threatened? How long until they actually start attacking because they lost? This is all because of their temper tantrum, because they lost. And they told us, oh, you guys don't know how to handle a loss. Look at what they're doing.
Oh, yeah. No, it's 100% projection. Like we actually have legitimate grievances, and we try to use the system that's in place to be able to get redress for those grievances. They're about their revolution. They've all been trained to be Marxist useful idiots. And the one way that they have to make sure that everybody falls into line is the threat of violence, knowing that people normally will be handcuffed by the very laws that they were able to pass while they were in power. They're just going to find that people are going to ignore it. That's really what's going to wind up happening is these people are going to show up, and everybody else is going to be like, you know what? We've had enough of your bull crap. You don't have any power anymore. We're just going to ignore you. And they're going to pitch a fit. They're going to try to cause property damage, loss of life. And when that happens, it's going to be a FAFO moment. They're going to fuck around and find out.
Well, that's the problem, because that leads to a civil war, and I don't want to see a civil war. This is the fruition of the DEI, the equity, the division that they have been sowing for well over a decade, the fear-mongering that they have been putting out there, telling women that, oh, the election's over. Well, you just lost all your rights. Women, the Constitution still exists. The amendments exist. No one's trying to take that away. Oh, but you have no rights. Black people, you're going into chains on January. No, you're not. This is a lie. And now we are seeing this, and that leads to violence that is unnecessary and unwarranted. And it leads to a civil war, and I'm very, very upset about that.
I don't know if it does. I mean, if the police see that they're going to have the backing of the community, and so instead of, remember the example I used before where there's 300 rioters and there's one person dissenting, and the cops would turn around and arrest the dissenter because they don't want to deal with the 300. Well, if there's 300 people that are rioting, and there's 3,000 people dissenting against the riots. Now the dynamic is different. Now there's 3,000 people backing up law enforcement.
I don't know that you're going to see that. I would like to say that we're going to see that. I don't think that we will, because look at what's happening. And I just showed it with Syracuse.com. There is a direct quote from Lee Zeldin, who's a former member of Congress. He's now an appointee by Trump in the upcoming administration. And he's directly making a statement that he made publicly on X, saying exactly what happened to him. And Syracuse.com, who I know several of the writers at Syracuse.com personally, I'm a member of the press, I've worked alongside them. They literally, purposefully, they're either the reporter or the editor, removed the fact of what he said, the actual information, which it wasn't that, oh, we got a bomb. They targeted him, and they sent him a message, a direct message telling them why they were doing this. Part of why we are seeing this, it's because they think MAGA is evil. That's what they've been told for going on 9 years now. They think they feel like they're right because truth is subjective. That's what they've been told for about 12 years now. And they believe that they will be historically correct. They have been motivated to do these kinds of evil actions because no one will call them out. And Syracuse.com, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, the New York Times will not give the public the full picture so that we can literally say, it's not because I'm a Republican. It's not because I'm a conservative. I'm saying these things because I'm an American, and this is abhorrent to America. I mean, Frank, Mike, do you disagree with me?
No. No, I don't disagree at all. I've long said that the party of violence is Democrats, and they've proven that throughout history. Okay, you simply look throughout our history, the predominant high violent groups have been established by Democrats. Okay, most of the beatings to keep people away from polls was done by Democrats. The KKK, Democrat group. Okay, violence is inherent in the Democrat Party. And so it doesn't surprise me to find out that the Democrats are resorting to violence yet again.
And let's clarify that. That's offensive violence. That's not violence in defense of something. That's offensive violence in order to create terror and compulsion to comply.
Right.
Of course. That's a very important distinction to make, because a lot of times what will end up happening is people get pushed to the point where they defend themselves using violence, and then the left goes, oh, you used violence. I thought you were against all violence. Oh my God, you used violence. And it's like, you're sitting there beating me with a hammer. What do you want me to do? Like, you instigated the violence by perpetrating violence. I'm using it in defense. You were offensive.
Yeah, but I get that. But see, there is no excuse here. And they're counting on one of the reasons why we have seen CNN, MSNBC, MSNBC is being sold off because everyone has abandoned them. But people have to really pay attention to the details, because look how widespread it is. It isn't just the big 3-letter news agencies. Syracuse.com is regional. It's upstate New York. And even there, we are seeing this in all forms of media. You will see that this will be suppressed by YouTube and by Google. And I know they have, because it's harder to find this article. If you didn't know, you should be looking for it. This is the kind of thing that they do not want you to see, because I think every American, regardless of their political ideology, will agree this is insane. This is unacceptable. That if there is a party that has this ideology, that the progressive wing of the Democrats or the far left, whether they're in a party or not, this is unacceptable. And that means that we have to change our college, because that's where they're being indoctrinated with this ideology. It's not just something you walk into and just suddenly have. You're taught this. You are trained on this, and they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to change that. They don't want to lose power, because this is all about power. And so they are editing out critical facts. This is how we destroy our Constitution. This is how I truly believe this everything since the election has been leading to a civil war, not because of Republicans. And even on January 6th, I was live that day telling everyone, we're not going into a civil war. That's not leading to a civil war. Why? Because we weren't trying to. We had 300,000 people on the ground right then and there. If we wanted to have a civil war, we would have done it. We would have taken over. We weren't trying to do that. Conservatives follow the law. Republicans follow the law. And to your point, Dow, yes, we were pushed to an extreme, so they made a demonstration, but they didn't try and take over the government. The left is actively trying to, they're escalating this. They went from protests. First, they lied to us about the election. They tried to gaslight us on it. Then they blamed us for it, demonized us again for it. And now they are escalating to threatening violence against us. And I think that it goes to violence, and they want this. And Frank, what do you think? I know I'm just livid right now.
Yeah. And this is nothing new. This is nothing new. This has been going on. This is the political cycle. Every time that we have an election and the Democrats lose, this is exactly what we get. Yes, it's getting worse and worse and worse as years go on. But what are you going to expect? The left-wing media has been losing their market share time and time again. The left-wing power base has been losing more and more power with every cycle of election that they don't cheat on. And just like any other kind of animal, once you back them into a corner, they start to show you how dangerous they really are. The fact that the Democrats have been using violence for as far back as I could possibly remember. I mean, the union busting, that was way back when. That was the weird thing because it was the left on both sides of it. The unions were assembled by the left, and then they used the left-wing union busters to come in and break the unions up. How did the left put power into the unions? Oh, well, you went to put in the vote. If you didn't vote who they told you to vote for, they'd break your knuckles out back. You know, what does this say? Power only comes at the barrel of a gun? Mm. And the fact that the media doesn't want to own up to their end of it, it's all simple transference. Everything that the left does, they blame the right for doing. And, I think the majority of the American people are really starting to see it. I think the turning point in this country was the 2020 elections. As many people don't want to admit it and don't want to say it, you didn't need to rig every single machine in order to steal an election. You only had to rig certain areas and a plurality of things in order to swing an election. And then to have the American people be put on lists as terrorists, to be told to shut up, sit down, stay in your house, wear your mask, can't go out with your wife, you can't go out with your kids, you can't do this, you can't do that. The left overplayed their power card. And not only did the people on the right realize it, but a lot of people on the left started realizing it too. Because when the pepper balls started flying around in Minnesota because people wanted to stand out on their front porch during COVID, the one shooting the pepper balls didn't really give a damn whose candidate sign was out in the yard. No, people on the left were just as victimized as people on the right were. Because not only was it a matter of you saying, well, I think this or I think that. Well, you're wrong. You're the devil. Shut up and sit down. Even if you just had the mere sense of asking a question, you were demonized. And I think this is what you're seeing is the last throes of a dangerous group. Now, when it comes to pipe bomb threats and everything, listen, if I want to hurt somebody, I'm not going to give them any warning.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah, but the left does. The left does.
Right, because all they want to do is incite panic
and terror.
They only want to incite panic. The only time that the left actually acts is when they don't say something. Okay, so when the left is quiet about something, that's when the bad things start happening. When they need a straw man, when they need an argument, when they need an agenda that they need to push. Majority of these threats are going to be from lone idiots who are sitting in their grandmother's basement, Twitter in one hand, game stick in the other, just trying to voice their opinion. They're stupid. They're stupid.
But I agree with you, Frank. But my concern is when we think about the congressional baseball shooter, a leftist, when we think about the Chaz, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, we think about the Atlanta Autonomous Zone, Austin, Brooklyn, LA, across this country, over 20 different autonomous zones where children were being killed, where cities were razed, the $2 billion in damage in Minnesota. They told us they were going to do that because their feelings were hurt. And here we go again. Their feelings are hurt. They've been embarrassed. And now we're seeing the reaction of that. And I mean, I would love for them to go through the constitutional process. You lost. I know. I was just out yesterday, Monday, and I'm at a live event. Yes, it was with the Conservative Party, but at a live event. I've already been talking to Democrats. I know they're talking about the next election. They're trying to make people aware of the candidates that might be there, the issues that they need to be tackling as we go forward. They're going through the constitutional process. That was live. We had individuals who had a New York City councilwoman in front of them. They were asking her questions. She was answering to them using the constitutional process. And then we get the left. They're demonizing us on cable. They're demonizing us through their algorithms on social media. They're now threatening our lives just like they did in 2020, and we saw the violence there. We have to, while I think the majority of Americans, you're absolutely right, Frank, they're not going to do anything, and I don't think they're the ones upset. I think it's that sliver of the Democratic Party, which is about 7%. That's the progressive and further left wing of Democrats. They're insanely loud, and they are just insane. They're the people who block off the Democratic Socialists of America. They're the people who block off the roads and the bridges and stop fire departments and ambulances from being able to help people. I don't blame all Democrats for that. I blame the Democratic Party for having those people, that wing in their party. But I don't blame them for who blocked off this road. We know it's the progressive wing. We got to call this stuff out, or it gets worse.
Yeah.
Well, listen. I know you keep saying you hate the idea of a civil war. You hate this. You hate that, and all the rest of that. But let me put this in very clear and uncertain terms for everybody to understand. Until and unless you have one of these riots, or you have one of these looting episodes, or one of these everybody blocking the streets, until and unless the American people collectively say, you know what, I've had enough of this bullshit, and they go outside with a baseball bat and start cracking friggin' heads and tell the police department, listen, you guys have already been told you're going to be defunded, so stand down and let us take care of this one. And lay waste to a group of these people, leaving them in the street where they started their crap. Make it so unappetizing for people to act like fools that they'll stop acting like fools. Because if we're going to be constantly labeled as the party of violence, we're going to be labeled as the party of the, dangerous people, this, that, and everything else. Every now and then the lion's got to show the rest of the Serengeti who the lion is. And maybe that's what needs to happen in order for this to stop. When you get a bunch of people with pink and purple hair getting their heads shaved in the middle of the street and saying, now, how do you like it? You want to keep going? Because we can keep going. We can keep it up. They won't want to keep it up. We keep hearing how many times, it takes a village. It takes all of the stuff about, you're responsible. You're responsible for your brother's actions. You're responsible for your neighbor. Until the community actually starts to do something and police their own and settle this stuff down, it's going to continue to happen. And we're going to keep getting the blame. Every now and then, you got to cock it back and let one loose and say enough is enough.
It's like discipline. It's basically discipline. Yeah.
I mean, that's just my point of view. I mean, listen, why do you have you have areas in the country where home break-ins at historically low levels? You have crime at historically low levels. You know what they all have in common? They all have in common a sheriff who's willing to get up at a podium and says, hey, listen, if you have somebody breaking into your house, we encourage you to shoot them. If you have somebody trying to carjack you, we encourage you to shoot them. If you have somebody trying to mug you, we encourage you to shoot them. Whenever you have law enforcement work hand in hand with the honest, hardworking American citizenry that says we are not going to be victimized, we're not going to be bullied anymore, and we're not going to be left to the devices of these radical people, you have a dramatic decrease in these kinds of instances. Wow, who would have thought there'd be a correlation between the two of them?
There's a reason the old axiom exists of polite societies and armed society.
Right.
So
you got
True.
right. You got the sheriff down in Florida saying when the storms come in, listen, if you have any intention of looting, I'm just going to tell you, you don't know what's waiting behind the door of that house, because 90% of the people down here have guns and they shoot a lot. And we encourage them to shoot a lot because it's less paperwork for us.
yeah.
You know, when you start seeing that happen, all right, we always see, all right, stores getting boarded up, people doing this, people doing that. You remember the McCluskeys down there standing out on their front lawn with the AR-15 and her little pistol that didn't even work? Did their house get broken into?
Of course not.
Their house didn't get burned down. Yeah, they got arrested, they got charged, but they were also exonerated later on because they stood their ground and did what was right. When people stand their ground and do the right thing, they will be rewarded from justice, if not from the courts, but from their community. And that's what people in this country better start realizing they need to do. Oh, you have pipe threats? Next time you get a threat, you find out who did it, you hang the little prick up by his balls from a lamppost, and that'll be the last time it happens for a while.
I will not, I cannot advocate for that, for vigilante violence.
No, I'm talking about law enforcement. You find a little bit. We have to start bringing back corporal punishment in this country. I don't have a problem with people being tarred and feathered, anymore. I don't have a problem with that. But start bringing it back. Let's instead of putting dead terrorists on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine and glorifying their actions, how about we start putting prisoners at the moment of execution on the cover of magazines? And saying, this is what happens when you take innocent life in this country. This is what happens when you're a terrorist. When you get a community that bands together and they find some pedophile in a shopping market trying to meet an 11-year-old kid and they leave him battered and bloodied in a parking lot somewhere, and the police come up and scoop him up and say, hey, this is how we found this guy.
I understand, Frank, but
maybe it's not. No, I'm not saying people, need to go out and do it. But when it does happen, publicize it. Hey, this is what happened to this guy. Maybe it's not a good idea to be out there trolling for children.
I get what you're saying about that.
Make them birds again.
That leads to, I think that encourages. I understand the sentiment. I understand the emotion.
Right. You'll say
actions do not help.
Right. All right, no, but you'll say, oh, it leads to vigilantes. But let me explain this to you. If it discourages criminals from doing it, you have no reasons for vigilantes to go out hunting. So when these people stop doing the stuff.
I understand exactly. I understand the sentiment, and I agree with the sentiment. But I can't, for me. And I don't think that take away the emotion. When we talk about this, I've known you for too many years. I know you don't believe in vigilante violence either. No one on this panel does. I know all of you for years. So I know that's not the case.
No, I'm not promoting it.
I understand.
But what I'm saying is when it happens, because it will inevitably happen, you just show the criminals this is what happens when you defund the police. This is what happens when people have to do things on their own. Maybe it's not a good idea to be a criminal today. Maybe you should take the day off.
Make criminals birds again.
I'm going to look at this from a historical lens. What do you think was more violent? The Wild West or today?
Today. It's a fact. It's an obvious fact.
Okay, and the thing is, in the Wild West, a lot more people owned guns, a lot more people carried guns.
And it was highly unregulated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Today it is much more much more violent crime happening.
Yeah.
During the Wild West, quote unquote, Wild West period of time, rapes were almost unheard of.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the community stood together. I mean, and what people on the East Coast used to read in dime novels was fiction, and that was it.
Yeah.
It was exciting to read about the gunfights and all these other things, but in actuality,
gunfights did happen. Don't get
they
me wrong.
did,
But they were typically between rival gangs.
Yeah, there was not this. The whole Wild West was not a constant barrage of events where people were shooting at each other. No. That was the dime novels.
The Wild West was more like Little House on the Prairie than it was Gunsmoke.
Yep.
Yeah, it makes sense. Again, Hollywood sensationalizing the violence, sensationalizing the emotions, taking advantage of emotionally manipulating people into believing something that isn't necessarily true. And we see that constantly right now. And we're seeing that and again, it's not just the election that just passed. This is happening. This is going to affect the 2025, 2026 midterms. It's affecting elections and the country moving forward. All of this. And like I said, yesterday I was talking to a guy who's the first person to declare to run for the mayor of New York City. And Frank, you'd love him. You'd love him. It's Darren Aquino. Very much what you're saying right now is pretty much what he was saying yesterday. Then we have to be more proactive. We have to be more assertive. We have to not defund the police, but we have to make sure the police are effective and efficient, and then support them when they are.
I want to bring this back to the historical lens again.
Yeah.
Okay. Back in the period of the Wild West. Okay. The sheriffs had a militia force. They were called posses.
Yeah,
which were members of the citizenry that would stand up and help assist the sheriff when the sheriff needed it. We used to have this type of community involvement with people back in the day. Okay. And this was common clear up until the early 1900s. Clear up actually through 1930s, early 40s.
Yeah.
It was very common for sheriff's departments to be 1-2 people. But when they needed the help to go serve a warrant or something like that, where they needed the extra manpower, all they had to do was send the word out, and people around town would gather and help the sheriff.
Yeah.
If they went on a manhunt for a dangerous criminal, it was a posse that was going with the sheriff.
Temporary deputization. Yeah.
Right. Okay. That was the way our communities used to operate, was the community would take some responsibility for their own law enforcement.
Yeah.
For their own protection. We're trying to gear this around now where we're trying to protect ourselves with government resources when the government resources are not there to protect us. We need to go back to having our communities protect ourselves. And when we had communities protecting ourselves, crime rates were way, way, way down.
Yeah, because everyone knew who the criminals were. Like if you committed a crime in a community, the community would know who they were. Usually they were strangers to that community, or they were people that were known to have problems.
Right. Property theft was low. Violent crime was extremely low. Okay. A lot of the stuff that we hear about today wasn't happening then, at least not at the rates it's happening now.
Yeah.
No, like you said about most crime, even we're looking at 70s, 80s, outside of the crack epidemic.
Yeah.
Outside of that, we're seeing, and actually we've seen the differences when communities come together and address an issue than when they don't. And I guess ultimately I'm saying is we need to address this issue. We have to break this system of indoctrination that has, I mean, I never before in my life would have believed that I would see Americans supporting genocide. That's the pro-Hamas movement. And I never would have thought that that kind of mentality, this pro-Hamas, pro-genocide, pro-Iran mentality would somehow be dominant in our politics today. And we're seeing that. And this is why Democrats right now are trying to figure out, look at Hollywood, look at the news media. They're trying to figure out who are they. That's why they're revamping everything right now. That's why we see America's in so much flux right now in terms of our news media and our political commentary from the left. They're trying to figure out, well, who are we really? Obviously, American people reject what they have been, which has been pro-Hamas, pro-genocide, I would say racist, sexist, the DEI intersectional movement, that programming, they're rejecting it. I'm just very concerned because we're at a pivot point in America.
Well, it just goes to show you that the left in this country does not have a core. They don't have a foundational set of beliefs that they can actually articulate that doesn't change with the blowing of the winds and what color hair dye is popular this month. They all want to jump on the latest fad, the latest bandwagon, the latest victimology to see which way they're going to wind up going with, instead of actually saying, this is what we believe in and sticking to it. And then you let the people come to you. You let people decide which way they want to run their lives and then decide which ideology comes closest to their core beliefs. And that's the way, those are the people you want them to lead. They do it the different way. They look and they go, what fad is most popular? And how many of those people can we enlist and put at the forefront of our movement and say, look, this is who we are. Look how inclusive we are. No. It just shows you have no core. You have no soul. You have no spirit. You have nothing inside you that drives you that says, this is who I am. This is what I believe. Because if you look at the party platform of the Democrats, the one thing that's been consistent throughout, and that's the only thing I can think of that's been consistent, is racism. That's it. That is the only consistent basis that they have. Now, you say, well, how is that a consistent? Well, listen, they can dress it up any which way they want. Every program that they ever institute is based in racism. That's the one thing that drives the Democrat Party, that you can parse every single issue. Why are all the Planned Parenthood offices in minority neighborhoods? I don't know. Well, let's ask Margaret Sanger. Let's see if she has an opinion on that. Why is gun control always aimed at minority populations? I don't know. Let's ask those guys about that. Every single policy that the left stands policy is based in racism, but they try to garner power by appealing to what's popular at the moment. It's like they look at the top 10 video, they look at the Billboard top 10 and they go, okay, what are the top 10 most popular songs this week? Because that's our market. That's who we're going to go after. Yeah. Because they're all about using pop culture to hide the one foundational element that drives them, and that's racism. They don't care about equality. They don't care about making sure people get paid the same. They don't care about people living well. And how do you know they don't care about living well? Because you can take a busload full of leftists, put them on a bus, drive them through some beautiful neighborhood somewhere and see $1 million houses everywhere, and they'll all say the same thing. Nobody should live like that while there's people living on the streets. Put the same bus full of conservatives, drive them up the same street, and they'll say, man, I wish all the people living on the streets could live that well.
True. Yeah. And there's some, I just noted it in the chat, there is 2 real-world examples of what you're talking about, Frank, that the left, you're right. They don't have a core. They have what's popular right now. They're all about whatever's happening right now. They have no real solid base, no foundation. Richie Torres, it's still in the realm of rumor, but I've heard from the left, I've heard from people upstate, I've heard from people here in New York City, from the center and to the right. So everyone is talking about he's getting ready to run for governor. He just won his got reelected for his congressional seat. He's my representative, and he's now pivoting to run for governor. And he's now coming out. He's just been making announcements that all of his previous, you know how they have what is the GovTrack and a bunch of the organizations that track the voting records of congressional candidates. They ask them questionnaires.
Mm-hmm.
He's now going back and saying all of his progressive answers over the years on all of the issues and all the questionnaires. Oh, no, that wasn't him. That was his staffers making comments for him. That's not what he believes. He has a different opinion. Or he's flipping. Literally, he said this. And
so his staff voted for him.
His staff went in and I don't know how he's.
So essentially he's saying, I didn't vote. It was my staff that was voting for me in my absence.
Well, he hasn't gone quite that far, but he is saying that all
that's
of their
the implication. It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
That's his answer on all the questionnaires. And it's also very much what we saw about another example of course, is Kamala Harris. Vice President Harris, when she was on the stage, she flipped on all of her previous, to get the job of vice president, she had to flip on her views on racism on Joe Biden to get the job. And then once she got into the campaign, all of her issues, how many times did we see all of the left going, yeah, but in 2019, you had an entirely different point of view when it came to energy and defunding the police and the green energy. And she flipped on all of them. You're right, Frank. They flip on a regular basis. It's whatever is going to keep them in power right now.
Well,
which is evil.
Nobody has flipped more than Joe Biden. Look at his career, throughout the years, and look at all of the different stances he's had on the same issue. I could never say, there's two sides of a coin. Joe Biden finds 8. I don't understand how the hell that guy does that. But like I said, no core, no foundation. At least the Republicans. They might get their messaging screwed up. They'll put up horrible candidates. They'll put up people that can't articulate an idea. But at least for the most part, when it comes down to it, the fundamental belief system has always been individual responsibility, individual achievement, freedom, freedom of the press, freedom of speech, freedom of thought. Don't suppress people. Leave people the hell alone. Small government. That's what the message has always been. And the Democrats on the other side, it's just always been about how can we articulate a message that garners us the most amount of power, because that's all they care about.
To make a even more poignant about how little Democrats care about you as an individual, Dexter Taylor.
Yeah,
we had him as a guest. Yeah. Dexter Taylor is right now sitting in Rikers for 10 years for being a lawful citizen. And being persecuted by a government that doesn't care about you.
Well, we're doing some work behind the scenes with that as well. As a matter of fact, Marshall and I got to discuss a couple of things that we've been trying to put together behind the scenes with that. Listen, it's getting on 10 minutes before we close down. Let's get off of this. Michael Marshall, let's give us your opinion on anything. We want to end this show off. Here's the deal. We always so saturated ourselves with all of the abysmal bullshit around politics. We want to start bringing a little bit of entertainment value and a little bit of positivity value to this program so that people actually leave feeling a little bit good sometimes and also a little bit pissed. All right, so I want something positive from everybody here.
Sure.
All right. Who's willing to go first? Boy, what a miserable group of bastards.
No. I can go. I was deferring to age. I'm the youngest guy here.
Wait, how old are you?
I'm 42.
He is the youngest by hair.
Yeah,
God
I
damn
know.
it.
Don't let this fool you. I've earned every one of them, but I am younger.
Oh, I just spoke to my buddy Pete on video yesterday. He's been on the show with us dozens of times.
Yep.
He's 6 months older than I am. He looks like the frickin' Gorton's fisherman. He's got this long orange and white beard on him. And I said, I'm going to get you a yellow slicker next time you come on the show and a ship captain's wheel.
See, actually, I started too late to actually get the beard I want, but normally by this time I have a beard like Santa Claus, and I keep making the joke that I have my other job one night a year, and I'm prepping for that. It works out. So
all right, well, all right.
But
So
anyway.
let's start with you, Dal. Give us
Okay.
something positive that we can be thankful for this Thanksgiving Eve 2024. Wow, that rhymed. Holy crap.
We can be thankful that the American people did not balk on their duty and actually voted their conscience and saved the federal government within a day. Just in the speculation, just within a day, I had coworkers that were looking at their 401ks and they were exuberant. The markets had fluxed so much in the positive that their retirements looked really good. And that was only a jump of 3%. They were so happy. So we're doing a good thing. We just need to stick with it. That's all. It's not going to be all roses, but we're taking the first steps to revitalizing this country and creating and going back towards what we need to be, which is a liberty first focused culture. So I think that's a positive, and that's huge. And we have the mandate. You see, we all saw it. We all saw it on election night, and that's a good positive.
Marshall, hit it.
We're starting to see other things starting to happen now too. Okay. One of the things that I'm starting to see is that communities are starting to come together. Not on key important issues, but they are starting to come together in some meaningful ways, and supporting others and so forth.
Seeing each other as human again.
One of the things that I'm starting to see that is positive.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see one of the other things that I'm starting to see positive is people are starting to realize, hey, we need to take responsibility for ourselves. We can't rely on government always to bail us out.
Yeah.
And that is another positive thing I've seen over the last year. Another big positive that it ended up getting shut down by the federal government was the reaction when Fayetteville was going through its issues with the storm.
Yeah.
The amount of private help that went into that area to help, that is a huge positive right there. Okay. And that's what we need to start seeing more of across this country. Because it's things like that starts making where we can start making the government not be a requirement, but be an enhancement to our lives.
Yeah.
Okay.
Citizens helping citizens.
Right. Yeah. We need to get off of our government reliance and get more towards community reliance and relying on each other and ourselves.
Even if that means that your neighbor is a state away or 2 states away.
And it doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter if they're Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative. Okay. Your neighbors. You're in the same community. Put aside your political differences for a little bit when people need help and help. Quit relying on the federal government to do it for you.
Yep.
What's that?
Cat.
Hold on 1 second.
Nothing gets by me. That's not a cat. That's a kitten.
Nah.
That is a rescue from our backyard. So this is Smudgy. Smudgy is 6 weeks old now. And she was left next to our barn by Mama Cat and not picked up on a very cold night. So we brought her into the house. We bottle fed her, and now she's gotten her first collar with a bell on it so we can find her in the dark.
The collar's bigger than she is.
Yeah, she's kind
Well,
of
hello,
small.
hello, and welcome to the family, Smudgy.
Yeah, she's not happy. Ow, claws. Ooh, that's my fingers.
Is Smudgy now a permanent resident of the Grimm family, or will she be
Yes.
up for adoption?
No.
Okay.
She's going to be permanent.
All right, so you're like us. A cat walks into your life, and you're stuck with it.
It's kind of funny because my son had been asking for a cat for years, and I was like, no, we have plenty of animals. No. And then finally, his sister had rescued a cat, and she had to get rid of him because she already had a cat who did not like this cat, and so they two were constantly at odds. So he finally got to adopt her cat, and then not even 2 weeks later, we ended up rescuing this cat. And we were talking about giving it up for adoption, and then I think it was the one night we had just finished bottle feeding her and everything, and the kitten came up and laid down on my wife and just snuggled up and started purring, and I'm like, nope, she's a permanent resident.
Yeah. Well, one day I'll tell you the story of Simon, my 600-mile cat. But that's a different story. All right, Vass, give us something positive to song the night out with. He's so perplexed.
Yeah. Okay. So Hezbollah has agreed to the ceasefire offered by Israel, which gives us hope that Iran has recognized they need to stop what they have been doing, the promotion of terrorism around the world. And they're trying to do that before Trump comes in because they know that would not fly well with him. We have, at this time, Putin has indicated that he wants to have negotiations with Trump, leading them to end the war in the Ukraine. So that is a positive sign.
That is a huge positive.
To the regional wars. Obviously, Biden has been working against that. So is France, but the potential is there, and we could see that. Monday, I was at an event. Normally after the election, we see about a 75-80% decrease in the number of people paying attention to politics. There was a standing room only group of people in the Bronx, bluest county in all of America, and the room was filled almost wall to wall with people who were concerned about the future in New York City and the country as a whole. These are all positive things that I look forward to, that people are looking to take action. Yep. We're seeing America be strong, and when America is strong, the world becomes more peaceful and more beneficial to everyone.
Yeah.
And finally, today's my brother's birthday. He's younger. All my siblings are younger, but my brother, he's the middle brother. Yeah, he's the middle one. He had his birthday today. So, I'm jealous of him hanging out in the hot tub. My mom showed up today. She's cooking as we speak. So those are the positives I have for Thanksgiving.
Awesome.
Best I can do.
That's pretty good.
All right.
You got food on the table, roof over your head. That's a good.
That's always good. And of course, to those who are homeless, I'm an advocate. I hope that you have found there are so many things that will be available tomorrow. Please seek out your local community, local churches, veterans administrations, the VA, or sometimes the VFW will often, and a couple of the others. These organizations are there. They will provide food for you. They will give you warm jackets if you need that. The help is there. Just ask. America is a very giving country, and especially during the holidays, we will give. We will be there for you. So I know how cold it gets. I've been homeless twice, so I know how you can feel. But guess what? You can overcome that. I did. I know you can too.
Very positive.
Yes. All right. I ain't got nothing.
What? No. You don't get off the hook like that. No.
After hammering me about it too. All right, come on.
very positive. My Lori's cousin that she grew up with was diagnosed with cancer not very long ago, and she had to go in and have some massive surgery this past week, and she was I'm not going to get into her medical condition, but it was very, 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 very bad. Well, as of yesterday, she's officially going to be able to be being classified as being in remission.
Oh, excellent. That is good.
Nice.
After the surgery and everything. And I know how much that, even though Lori hasn't seen her cousin in years and they've kind of haven't had the closest relationship, Lori's not a phone person. She's not a visit person. She's a letter person. She writes letters. She writes cards, and stuff like that. And, it's hard for her to keep in touch with her relatives that live across the country and it's that, but she always talking about her relatives, always talking about the memories, talking about this, talking about that. And when she finds people, they wind up reestablishing. Now, thank you for the internet. She's been able to cultivate these relationships she's had for so long. And it's like every time she gets in touch with somebody from her childhood, from her memories and stuff, it's always just this laundry list of bad news that comes along with it. And you hate, being like, oh man, I wish I could find people under better circumstances. Well, this is a set of circumstances that we're very grateful for and very thankful for, has turned very positive. And I have not been in the best frame of mind over the last couple of months. I've had a lot of things going on with myself and everything. So I don't feel like I have given Lori my best as far as my attention span or, my, being there as somebody to lean on. But I do pay attention. I have been so caught up with stuff that I've been keeping things bottled up. And I'm thankful that I have a woman here that's as strong as she is and that is as forgiving to understand that sometimes I just need a little bit of space. And even though it doesn't seem like I'm paying attention, I hear and see a lot more than what people think I do. And I know she knows that, but there are certain times when you have good relationships. Like I said, I always know a good friend when I can take a 4-hour trip in a car with somebody and not say a friggin' word and it's still a damn good trip.
Yeah.
That's the kind of relationship that Lori and I have. It's like, we don't have to say it. We know it, but on the same token too, gentlemen, if you have a woman in your life that you love, tell her.
Yep. Even
though you don't have to say it to them, you should, not because it's your responsibility, but always give a little piece of your heart every day to somebody in your life. It means a lot to them. So with that, I'm going to say goodnight because in about 7 minutes, my Taco Bell will be arriving, courtesy of DoorDash, because the only thing I had to eat today was a bologna sandwich.
Why don't you go ahead and sign us out, Frank?
That's
You're normally not here, so.
That's bologna.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us for this week's edition of the Weekly Roundtable. On behalf of Michael Marshall, Michael Vasquez, Dal Grimm, and all of the usual suspects, we wish all of you the healthiest, happiest, and kindest Thanksgiving that the Lord will grace you with. May you all have a wonderful meal, wonderful memories, and be thankful not only tomorrow, but for every day after. We love you guys. Amen. Be safe and shoot straight.
Thank you, everybody. See you next week.
Happy Thanksgiving.